Hey everyone, welcome to the Charlotte Mason Show. It is our first episode of 2023 and our first episode of season 7. And today, for fun, we are doing a double header. Hey, Jeannie.
Yes, hi, glad to be here.
Yes, that's
This is a
so
great
fun.
Christmas. I'm ready to start the new year with a bang.
That's awesome. Yeah, so we have lots of great topics and episodes and interviews planned coming your way for the rest of season 7. But we wanted to start off the year talking about the importance of attending a homeschool convention. So as you're planning out 2023 and blocking off your calendar, one of the things you might want to consider is attending a homeschool convention. Jeannie, you may not know this, but my first time attending a homeschool convention, I heard you speak.
That's crazy. What was I saying?
I'm trying to think of how many years ago. It had to be like
That is
15.
a long time ago. You know, some of my best memories of my homeschool years were going to the convention. It was just an annual thing that all my friends and their children, we all went together. And it was so much fun. It was just such great memories. My kids loved it. I mean, they just looked forward to it. And they all had like a little bit of money that they got to walk around. There was no cell phones back then. They had walkie-talkies, which I think are still probably helpful.
Yeah, actually, that's a really great idea for people that, because, depending on people's ages, don't necessarily have phones either. So having walkie-talkies, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. So, and the girls would all run off and the boys would all run off and everybody had their walkie-talkies, and I would get to meet and visit with my friends, people I hadn't seen. Because, in the homeschool world, you run into people that you did a class with or that you didn't realize was homeschooling. And it's so much fun when you go to the conventions because it's this whole excitement and this energy that you can't get in the homeschool community anywhere else.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I'm so grateful that, we had these years where we're doing things virtually. And I think a lot of people are ready to get out and be around other people. And like you're saying, that's this energy that comes when you're meeting people face to face and in person. So, and I do think a lot of homeschool conventions are family oriented. I know for the great homeschool conventions, their children's program, the Great Cat or Giant Cow, I think it's what it's called for the little kids. My kids absolutely love it. It's just like one big giant vacation Bible school, and there's inflatables and games, and this guy brings his puppies, and it's super fun. And then, the teen track, my older kids really enjoyed going and attending classes for themselves and just learning things as well. So it was it counts as a school day, but I'm not necessarily the one doing all the work. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, it is great. There are so many great things about it. And I feel like with the internet age, people are getting so much information on the computer and on the internet that they don't think that they would benefit from going to a homeschool conference. But it really does give you, it changes. It gives you a renewed vision. It gives you just an excitement and an energy that you needed to keep going, to get excited about homeschooling again. And you learn so much.
Yeah. So that was kind of some of the things that we had talked about. We had a little alliteration for people because I guess we both really like that. Of 4 things that 4 benefits of going to a homeschool convention. And the first one you mentioned was a renewed vision. And then you have refreshment, you have research, and you have resources. So let's dive into that first one that you mentioned, a renewed vision. So how does a homeschool convention help with that?
Well, I think that when you are walking in the vendor hall and you're seeing things in close hand, and you're talking to people, other homeschoolers or the vendors, people who are producing curriculum, you begin to get a vision for what your homeschool is going to look like and what changes you need to make or what you want to do. But especially when you go to the talks, choosing the talks that are really going to speak to what you want to hear about, what you need. And there's so many, especially at GHC, there are so many speakers, so many different talks to go to that everybody has an opportunity to get just some words of wisdom, some new
Mhm.
encouragement, some just a renewed vision for their homeschool. And I think that's
Yeah.
one of the best things about homeschool
Yeah, and I
conferences.
think vision is so key and so important because we can get really bogged down in the details and like what math curriculum are you using next year, and that's super important. But come Tuesday when you're totally burnt out, if you don't have the vision, you're not going to be able to sustain this. So the vision, the why behind what you're doing is what's going to keep you going and keep you motivated and keep you focused, because there are a lot of different ways to homeschool and a lot of different resources, and it can feel like you're like getting doused with the fire hose sometimes if you
Exactly.
don't have a
Remembering,
vision and this is what we're doing and kind of able to filter out things.
I agree. And I love what you just said about the why, because I think remembering the why is a big part of renewing your vision. Getting a new vision, getting some new ideas, implementing them, deciding how you're going to do that's great, but also remembering your own personal why you are doing this, why you chose this, whether it was that God called you to it and you knew that this is what God wanted you to do, or you had some other specific reasons. Remembering those reasons why helps you to continue when things are hard, because let's face it, homeschooling's hard. It is really,
Yes.
really hard. I mean, being a parent is hard enough, but being a homeschool parent is something else entirely, but it's worth it. I'm
Yes.
done with the journey. As y'all know, my children are all grown and mostly gone. I have two that are graduating from college this year, and then I've got four young adults and I have a grandchild now. So I had my first Christmas with my grandchild. My daughter's already talking about homeschooling him,
Oh.
and it's just it was worth it because
Mm,
of the people my
mm,
children became, the
yes.
adults my children are, because of homeschooling. The relationships they have with one another is just, people comment on it all the time. All their friends comment on their relationship with one another and how envious
Mhm.
they are of that unity and that bond. And that really does happen through homeschooling. And so, yes, a renewed vision so that you can have motivation to plow through those really hard days.
Yeah, and I think it's really apropos that a lot of the conventions are in March, in the time of year when it's like I call that like the if you're running a half marathon or a marathon, they call it hitting the wall, and that's what happens in March. And it's like your body's just so depleted, like all the energy and excitement you had coming off like the holidays and things. You're just in the middle of winter still, and it can become very dreary. So going somewhere at these conventions and being around other people and having that energy and excitement and seeing what they're doing, that does renew your vision and inspire you. And like you're saying, it's really great to see these families. And a lot of the times the people working in the booths are these young adult children that were homeschooled, and getting to see them and talk to them is really encouraging as well. So,
It makes you
so
feel
yeah,
like you're part of something bigger, like a
yes,
bigger
right.
community. I'm part of this. These people are my people. And there's
Mm,
nothing more thrilling than seeing people face to face and
yeah,
seeing them in real live person,
yes,
that you can
right.
touch. Is
Yes,
wonderful.
it's so encouraging to know that, you're not alone. And I think we can be in our houses and it can feel very isolating. And, getting around this community is so vital. It does give you that renewed vision. It also gives you refreshment. So, how does a homeschool convention refresh you?
Well, I think it's very close to the
Yeah.
renewed vision. The refreshment happens when we feel like we have relaxed and we feel
Mm,
refreshed and ready to go again. And that's what happens when you're with people in real life and you're listening to speakers and you're talking to people in the booth who have wisdom, who want to give you that wisdom. They're there to share their wisdom with you. They're
yeah.
there to give you, and God is there to give you those golden nuggets, to put you in contact with somebody who has a special word that the Lord wants you to hear. And I feel
Mm,
like that He uses those homeschool conferences to do that. And I always tell people, curriculum is wonderful, but we do need to be with one another and encourage
mhm.
one another. As it says, do not do as the word says in Hebrews, do not um, do not stop. I don't know what was a different word than stop, but stop meeting together
Yeah.
um, daily, as you are called to do. And it's hard to meet with anybody when we are homeschooling. It's really
Mhm.
hard to make it a regular thing, but the yearly convention, I think, is something that you don't want to forfeit, because it really is what God intended when he wanted Christians and believers to meet together. Is that encouragement, that refreshment, that just being able to give each other the advice and the wisdom, and the I'm there for you and I'm in the same boat as you are, and just feeling that
Mhm.
that is very refreshing.
Yeah, and I love it when I see like groups of friends that they make this like their like girls' weekend and stuff, and you could just tell like they're just having such a great time together, and they're
Oh,
staying in a
I was
hotel room all night chit chatting, and it's so precious.
yes, I was
So grab some
whenever I
friends and make this your kind of refreshment girls' weekend too.
exactly. I was so envious when I started speaking at conventions. So every convention I went to, I was speaking at, but I
Mhm.
had all my friends and they would get together and they
Uh,
would get a
yeah,
hotel. They would go, even if it was a hotel in the same city that they
yeah,
lived in, they would all get a hotel. They'd stay up all
mhm.
night and, eat chocolate and
Yeah,
go to the convention together. And I was just so envious. I was like, oh, that looks like so much fun. I'm so glad that I see people doing that all the time, and people fly to cities together that they haven't seen each other in a while, but they're
yeah.
homeschooling. They fly together to these cities, and they make it a special reunion, a
Mhm.
special, like a women's retreat is
Yeah, right,
exactly.
exactly. Right. Um, and also too, I love that girls' weekend idea, but I also see a lot of people who bring like their spouse or their
Mhm,
grandparents who might be helping with homeschooling and need some more knowledge. So that brings us to the next R, which is research.
mhm. I so agree. I think there's research in that way where
Mhm.
you are revealing to your loved ones, either your parents or your husband or even your children, what this is
Mhm.
all about and
Yeah.
what we're doing here. And just being able to look at the curriculum, to be able to research, to be able to speak to the people who produce the curriculum or people who are knowledgeable about that curriculum and ask the right questions to get understanding of how it works is so
Yeah.
important. And you're not going to get that online as
Right.
much, because there's not that back and forth interaction that happens in a conversation.
Right. Yeah. That happens to me all the time. I'll have some lady come up. You could tell she's like kind of pulling her spouse, and she's like, okay, I need you to explain Charlotte Mason to him.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah, let me boil that down into a few sentences for you. But
The elevator pitch of,
yes,
of her like massive
she's like,
amount
I'm
of
really
volume.
interested, but he doesn't really understand it. So can you help us out?
Yeah. Just, she was the greatest. And
Yeah.
everybody knew
So
it.
it can help with the
Yes.
education of other people that might be helping you with your homeschooling, and it takes the pressure off for you to kind of figure it all out and then tell someone
Yeah.
all about it. You can have them experience it, like you're saying that you learn so much more that way for sure. It also helps you research the different philosophies that are out there, the different methods that are out there, and really see, okay, which one do I want to kind of camp out in and put this as our focus? Because like we talked about with the vision, it's so easy to be swayed this year to this thing and this year to this thing without having like a clear, definite, this is the path that we are chosen and believe in. It doesn't mean you can ever change or modify it, but it helps you kind of have direction for your days and direction for the books and the experiences and things that you do choose for your family. So having that research and kind of nailing down what path you are going to go on is super important.
I so agree. I love that. So, and then the last one, is it the last one already?
Yeah.
Uh, what was it? I can't remember.
Resources.
Resources. That's right.
So yes,
Everybody
we
just
talked about renewed vision, refreshment, research, and the last R is resources.
So I think that this is probably the number one thing is
Mhm.
being able to get your hands on the curriculum and the different things that are offered to homeschoolers, being able to see them up close. And there's so many things you have never heard of as you're
Hmm.
walking down the aisles, and you see these booths and you see things you've never heard anybody talk about, but it's a wonderful resource. It's a
Right.
wonderful, thing you could add to your homeschool or change, or there's so many great resources that
Okay.
you will only see if you go to a homeschool conference.
That's true. Yeah. And it makes a huge difference. Like, online, you can kind of get some understanding of some of these things, but when you're actually like holding it in your hands and flipping through, people say that to me all the time, especially about my curriculum, because it is kind of complicated and different. And so people are like, once they open it, they're like, oh, I totally get it now. I just had to like hold it in my hands and like understand it. And so, the exhibit hall will have hundreds of different vendors that, all the way from like cooking appliances I've seen, to like complex math, books. So it's just a huge range of things too,
Mm-hmm.
that can really kind of, like you're saying, help guide you and give you the tools and the resources that you need to move forward into the next school year. And so, I see people, they bring those little like rolly laundry baskets around the
Yeah.
vendor hall, and I'm like, that's so smart. Save your
Yeah.
back.
Yes, definitely. I've seen people with suitcases. I've seen people with the rolling carts, and now the big thing is those little foldable wagons. You can put a
Oh,
lot
yes,
of books.
yes, yes. When you take to the beach. Yes.
Yeah. So that's wonderful. But I will caution you that if you've never been to a homeschool conference, it's easy to get overwhelmed,
Yes.
because
Yes.
what can happen is you can look at all of these books and all of these resources and feel like you should be doing it all,
Yep.
and you shouldn't.
Mhm.
What you
Yep.
remember is that God has promised to be your guide for. He says he will be your guide forever and ever. He will be our guide, and he says he will be a voice behind us whispering, "This is the way, walk ye in it."
Mhm.
He is going to be guiding you and leading you, and so he promises to answer your prayer. He called you to homeschool, but he doesn't expect you to figure it all out for yourself. So when you go to a homeschool conference, be in prayer. Ask the Lord to show you the direction you must go, show you where to go, which booths, which people to talk to, which talks to go to. Ask him to be your guide, because he promises to be your guide, and he will answer that prayer, and he will take you to the places that he wants you to go. He'll show you the curriculum. He will give
Mhm.
you peace. My peace I leave with you. My peace he leads us with his peace. And so when you go to a home conference, especially if it's your first one, seek his peace,
Mhm.
and don't make any decisions in
Right.
anxiety or
Right.
fear, because anxiety and fear is not from God. That
Right.
is from the enemy, and he likes to make us anxious and make really hasty decisions that are not from
Yes.
God. God wants us to make decisions with peace and
Mm.
tranquility. And so even if you don't buy a thing
Yeah.
and you're just looking, be sure that you are making decisions based on peace, based
Mm.
on just a feeling of, yes, I feel like this is where God has led me today. And either you're going to buy it today, or you're going to do some more research on it, talk to more
Mhm.
people, look at some reviews, whatever it is. Don't feel pressured at any time at a homeschool conference to purchase
Yeah.
while you're there. Use this as a place to get renewed vision, to
Mhm.
get to research, and to find refreshment,
Yeah.
and to be led by God as you are listening to speakers, as you're talking to people, as you're interacting with vendors. It's a place for you to be seeking God's direction for your homeschool.
Wow, that is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It's so key. It's so important because I think we can see all these different resources and we can see what other families are doing and we can feel that kind of doubt and
Mm-hmm.
insecurity. And that leads us to make decisions out of fear, like, oh, I didn't even know we had that problem till I heard this talk about XYZ. And so now I need to get this to fix the problem I didn't realize we even had, And rather, yeah, I totally agree with you. Like nothing needs to be decided right now.
Yeah.
Take the time to seek that. And it just reminded me of a story. I had a woman who came up to me after one of my talks. She was sitting right in the front row, And afterwards, she was in tears. And she said, I came to this talk thinking it was something else. And about halfway through, I realized I was in the wrong talk. But I stayed, and I'm so fascinated now by Charlotte Mason and what all the things you were talking about. And, just thank you. And then the next year, that same woman came back to me and she said, I don't know if you remember me from last year when I came to your talk by accident. And I said, yes, I do. And she said, I just love what you had to say, Charlotte Mason. I went and researched it. And that's what we've done this past year. She had pulled her son out of public school because something that had happened like in the middle of the year. Like she was starting the Monday after the convention to homeschool him.
Wow.
And I had just told her, just spend this time, going out in nature, reading living books. I can give you some suggestions, just spend this time kind of building some of those habits before you jump into any curriculum. And, she was just saying, God totally brought me to your talk by accident because this was the best year my son and I have thrived, and it was like you're saying, it's such a cool story. Like just be open to that and praying about it, and God will lead and direct your steps. So do you have any closing words about attending a homeschool convention today?
Well, I just have never heard anybody say they regretted going to a homeschool convention. It is worth the investment. Even if you have to travel and get a hotel, it is worth it. Nobody has ever wished they didn't go.
That's true. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, so both Jeannie and I will be at the Great Homeschool Conventions. So go to greathomeschoolconventions.com. I think if you're listening to this when this episode airs in January, it's still early bird pricing. I can't remember when that ends. Do you remember?
I don't know when the early bird pricing ends.
But you can still get a discount, I think, till the end of January is when it goes to like the big price, not the big price, the full price or whatever. But the other thing too is it's such a great deal because you can go as a whole family. And that's like what we were saying with bringing your kids and stuff. When you bring, a bunch of people, it really does save a lot of money.
Yeah. And so if you go to my website, there's some additional discounts there and the other conventions that I am attending or I'm going to be speaking at. And so I would love for any of you who listen to this podcast for you to come and introduce yourself to me, because that's always such a huge blessing to meet my people.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, we'll link to both of our speaking sites. How about that in the show notes? And that way people can kind of see the different conventions and where to go. And, there might be one that's really close to where you live that you never even heard about yet. So, take the opportunity to.
Yeah, or it could be in the city where your parents live, or a city where your best friend lives and you haven't seen in 5 years. There's lots of different ways to make it even more fun.
Yes, that's awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing you, Jeannie, at the Greenville one. Is that the first one this year?
I know Missouri's the first one.
Oh, Missouri's the first one. Yes, I like seeing my friends too at the convention. So, thank you everyone for listening, and we hope to see you in 2023.
Bye.
Bye.